you might try to find out what is the average if, let's say, there are a lot of numbers, and you might try to understand whether the data which you have collected, maybe there could be some kind of an error in the collection of your data. I started out preparing for my engineering in my class 11 and 12, and I knew that I liked mathematics a lot, but I never was interested in doing the engineering stuff. But I knew that there was no career apart from engineering which is suited for someone who is interested in mathematics. And it is back in 2004 and 5, and I was coming from a small town. So I had like no option other than doing engineering. So I did my engineering, and while I was in my third year and fourth year, I understood that there are options which I can explore, but all of those options would require me to change my track from engineering to something in, let's say, in finance or economics, or maybe do a research in mathematics if that is my interest.
Right.
But somehow I found out that let's start doing something for the timing and keep on exploring. So I worked in an investment bank for some time. That was my campus placement. So that was a big bulge bracket bank, UBS. So I worked for the Hyderabad office. So after working few months, I realized that this is not really a mathematical role, but more of like a presentation based role. So I had to leave that. Then I started teaching physics for a very long duration of time. And then when I started teaching physics, all of my way of teaching was very analytical in nature. So gradually building onto it, I worked with few startups in various niches and understood that there are a lot of applications of data. After that, I was preparing for my masters because I wanted to get into a course which is related to either finance or economics or something which has to do with an analytical rigor thing, which I eventually did, which was masters in quant economics. So there's a specific kind of a data science work which has to do with only statistical model building. So I had identified this is what I want to do in future. So I started looking for that kind of roles, and I eventually landed up in the current role in a market research firm. So I am there, you can say, kind of like a subject matter expert in statistics. So whatever problem they have in their modeling department, I help them to understand what is the underlying model here. Statistical science starts with collection of data. So when I say data, it could be of any type, because these days you also have image data. So when you, let's say, post a Facebook update, or let's say when you have an Instagram story update, even that is a data form of data. So how do you collect the data is the first job of statistical science. Now, when you collect the data could be of various types, as I was describing. So once you collect the data, you have to make sense of the data, as in you have to order in a structured way so that can be put for further analysis. Then once you have the data in an ordered way, then you do a bit of inferential statistics on that. Inferential meaning that how the data looks, as I was describing, that you might draw some kind of a charts on that. You might try to find out what is the average if, let's say, there are a lot of numbers, and you might try to understand whether the data which you have collected, maybe there could be some kind of an error in the collection of your data, because let's say you are measuring blood pressure of people, and let's say there's a range that if you measure 3,000, that could be absurd, because mostly people's blood pressure are not in the thousands range. So you might have to get to the data and understand whether there's some kind of a very vague error there or not. So this is your first stage of statistical science: cleaning the data, getting the data, making sense of the data, trying to understand what kind of data it is. And this is actually the most enjoyable part of statistics as well, because this is like the foundation of statistics, and a lot of problems which you will encounter at the last stage of your analysis can be directly pinpointed to the first stage while you're collecting the data and trying to organize it. So this is the first stage. And the second stage comes in dependent on the problem. What are you trying to solve? Now, dependent on the problem, you could employ any number of techniques. So now this is the black box. Now this is a black box for people who are new to statistics or who don't know about statistics, because over here I can bring in a lot of jargons and terminologies, but people will not understand anything. But to just give you a summary of what this black box will do, this will solve your problem. Now the business problem or a real life problem could be that whether the drug which you have invented is working or not. So let's say you have found out that this is a vaccination for COVID-19. Now you need to test whether this is working or not. Now in this black box, all the statistical modeling will happen. You will try to test the data, that whether the vaccination works or not. Now there are many ways to test it. Now, without getting into the details, because that will entail a lot of jargons and a lot of technical things which people might not understand. But the work here entails just understanding whether a business problem is getting solved or not. And the last stage, we need to validate it, because the thing with statistics is that you're dealing with limited data, or else there will be no statistics. Because think about it in this way. Let's say you have full data as in, let's say the world's population is around 7 to 8 billion. I mean, just taking a number. So let's say it's 9 billion to be in the safe side. So if the world's population is 9 billion, and if there is a way to get data on each of these 9 billion people, then there is no need for statistics. Because whenever you have statistics, means that you have a sample meaning how you have collected the data, what is the data. So the idea is, you obviously cannot have data on the 9 billion people on this earth. So you will try to get a sample. It could be 1,000 people, 5,000 people, or even 10,000 people. But still, 10,000 is a very small number when you look at 9 billion people. So the moment you have this 9 billion to 10,000 jump, you have population to sample jump. So this 10,000 is your sample. So to work with a sample inadvertently gives a lot of room for error, because it might happen that something which is true for this 10,000 odd people might not work with the remaining people. So the last stage, the validation stage, has to give you that confidence that whatever you have done with 10,000 people is going to be having that same result for if you take any of the 10,000 people, or let's say even if you take all the 9 billion people, with a bit of uncertainty. Uncertainty meaning, let's say you're saying that if I take this medicine, let's say if there's a way to measure happiness, so my happiness goes from 0 to 30. So if my medicine is actually good based on the statistics, the number should be close to 30, 32, 31, 28, 29. It should not happen that in some samples I get 20, in some samples I get 70. It means that either the data collection was not good, or the black box statistical thing which we did was not good. Because the validation has to give me that answer, whether my black box is good or sample is good or not. What is the problem? So this is not just a statistical science.